Caroline Record, and I'm an artist and a freelance user experience designer. And in my art, I use a combination of code and sculpture to invent my own mediums. And I like to find ways of capturing and playing back gestures in a way that create their own narrative spaces. I have a fine arts and human-computer interaction background. Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of my previous projects that touches on the fact that I studied human-computer interaction and art is called The User Experience. It was a collaboration with the Pillow Project Dance Company and Jeffrey Morgan. It was this dance piece that abstractly portrayed the life of a designer through this huge dysfunctional interface. And the dancers could interact with it with their body heat, and they could claw through different imagery with their heat and with their breath. Another project I did was called Walls That Soak, and it was a collaboration with Leo Wolfman. And Walls That Soak was this fully scaled representation of a 2-story house, but we didn't actually build the structure. Instead, we represented it through the ambient sounds of the home. So you'd walk through a mostly empty space, but as you walked through that space, you would hear the sounds as if you were in that home that we were representing. I'm working on this sculptural sound drawing framework, and what it is it's this system for drawing that basically takes this 3D form and it lays lines over it. So it's like this messy topography, and it's this way of representation that I'm interested in. And you can interact with it by pressing on each of the lines, and as you press on the line, you play back that line as a piece of audio. So right now I'm working on a portrait of John Reigert for a show this summer, and so I'm doing a portrait of him that is these lines overlaid on top of his torso, and you can play back each of those lines as a sound from his life and a sound from an interview that I'm doing with him. Right. My work often is in performance. Like I did a dance performance with a lot of media that I created. I'm also working on an opera right now, and I do think of code itself as a kind of performance. The way that code starts as language, and as it compiles itself, it becomes something visual, and it erases its original linguistic sort of form. And so I do think of it as a kind of performance. So in the gallery space, how people are going to interact with it is it's hopefully going to be on a touch screen where you'll see the sculpture up there, and it will be rotating slightly. And when I say sculpture, the lines are 3D, but it exists on a flat screen, and it'll always slightly be rotating, and you can go up and kind of touch the different lines, and as you touch them, they play back as sound. Mm-hmm. There'll also be a different mode where it'll play itself as sound, so it'll play all the different sound lines that it has stored in it. So in Walls That Soak, I was working with sound as a way of creating space, and in this next project I'm also working with sound as a spatial material that the sound isn't meant to exist on its own. It's only meant to exist in relation to you sort of exploring it spatially. And so for that project it was you actually walking through a space, but in this project it's you sort of playing back individual lines. So it happens on on a smaller scale, but it's the same interaction. Well, for this project there is a lot of programming involved, so the studio is a really good place to do that. And it also ties into a lot of the other work that I'm doing during the time of my residency. Right now, I've been teaching at the Ellis Girls School. I've been teaching a creative coding classes where I actually teach art classes, but they also introduce the fundamentals of programming. So we do drawing with code, and I've done that with the Science Center. So that kind of work, there's in the Studio for Creative Inquiry, there's a lot of interest in like introducing code as this creative medium. So I like being able to sort of run with that and take that to schools. I'm also working with the Children's Museum to help with their Eric Carle exhibit. And I'm figuring out how the Connect is going to be set up for their Lonely Firefly exhibit. And so that's something that I can do in this space as well, to do a lot of that technical work to figure that out.